Hello, I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and you are watching What Wise Women Want, here on Charlottesville's Public Access Comcast Channel 13. Every week, we bring you panels of women to discuss topics on a variety of subjects. Ladies, we are 52% of the population with 85% of the purchasing power. What we'd like to do is to help you gain knowledge on various topics so that you can make informed choices using that purchasing power. Today we're going to be talking about greening our home and business environments. We have a wonderful panel of women today from a variety of different organizations. To my right, we have Kate Rooth, who is the campaign director for Appalachian Voices. To her right is Angela Navarro, who's the staff attorney for the Southern Environmental Law Center. To her right is Laura Fiori, who's the residential energy manager for the Local Energy Alliance program, or LEAP. And to her right is Terri Kent, who's founder and program manager for Better World Betty. So ladies, what I thought we would do first is most people haven't heard about your organizations and really don't know what they are. They may have heard of them, but they really don't know what they are. So let's take a moment and tell people exactly what your organization does. Kate, would you like to start?
Sure, and let me start by thanking you for having all of us on the program today. I work for a group called Appalachian Voices, as you mentioned. We were founded in 1997. And our main purpose is to fight the greatest threats facing the central and southern Appalachian region. So we work to promote clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment here in our mountainous Appalachian region. Predominantly, we have been fighting for over a decade a practice of coal mining known as mountaintop removal. And that's an area where I have worked within the organization for a number of years.
Excellent. Angela, tell us about the Southern Environmental Law Center.
Yes, and I echo Kate's statement. Thank you for having us on the show today. SELC, the Southern Environmental Law Center, is a regional nonprofit that uses the power of the law to protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the special places we care about in the Southeast. Our region covers Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. And we were founded in 1986 and have grown to a team of over 60 legal and policy analysts and experts. And we have offices in all 6 states in which we are involved in various environmental issues.
Excellent. And would you mind telling us, Laura, about LEAP?
Sure. We're the Local Energy Alliance program, and our mission is to help homeowners and businesses reduce their energy efficiency. And as it turns out, changes that you can make to your building, whether it's a home or a business building, in addition to saving energy, can also make the building more comfortable and also improve indoor air quality.
Excellent. And Terri, tell us about Better World Betty.
Well, Better World Betty is the local organization, nonprofit, that I helped found here in Charlottesville. And our mission is to really give people the tools and the education they need at the local level so that they can begin taking action to reduce their environmental footprint, whether that's at home, at school, at their place of work.
Okay, so there are a lot of misconceptions and misinformation about, all this in sustainability and environmental issues. And I happen in my practice to see a lot of children who suffer from environmental kinds of illnesses in one form or another. So let's start with the home, okay? And what is it in our home? How is it? From days gone by, we're now infiltrated with electricity. We have wireless, we have light bulbs, we have refrigerators, we have, gas stoves, we have microwaves. How does all of this, is there an effect on our bodies, and is there, what happens to us in terms of all of this? Anybody want to start?
I can speak to that. It's been widely publicized that indoor air quality is one of the top 5 public health concerns, and so it's very appropriate that all of us are looking closely at our homes and really trying to understand all the different factors that can affect that. Moisture, and I'm sure we could go around the table and talk about all the different ways that indoor air quality can be degraded.
Well, let's start with that. Okay, so how does indoor air become degraded?
Well, I'll go ahead and interject that it's really the home is like our ecosystem, right? We're taking things in and we're sending things out. So if we think of it that way, every product that we bring into the home, whether it's furniture that has glues or whether it's the paint that's not low VOC, there's so many things. So you can really go throughout your day and just kind of look, what are you bringing into the home? That's actually how I started my organization, kind of as a local nap time activist, mom. Like, what are we bringing in? I have 2 kids, 2 boys of my own, and what are we bringing into the home? What are we taking out? Like, how can we reduce? What are the alternatives?
Well, when I think about the list of things that are potentials, let's just start with the glues or the paints. So let's talk about furniture or those kinds of things. Anybody have any comments about that kind of thing?
Well, it's really important to be like you said, we're the consumers. So to be really aware of where we're buying the product, who we're buying it from, knowing the company, knowing the sources, being really an educated consumer. And so really, I don't pretend to be an expert on all these things, but what I do is do the research and figure out which organizations, which nonprofits are really on it. For example, I know this is not furniture, but Seafood Watch. I know that they have very stringent regulations. This is what they do. They look at the fish populations. They look at how the fish are procured. So when I talk to people, I say, use the Seafood Watch. There's an app now, and there's like a consumer guide, which you can do. What are the ones to avoid? What are the ones that I should buy? So that's just one example of something that you could do. But the labels are important. Knowing who the company is, asking lots of questions, and really thinking about the end use. It's recycling, reduce, reuse, right. But it's the rethinking. Right. Is the fourth R, I guess.
So you ladies, let's go with something that's more attributable to what you might be doing. There's been a lot of debate about whether or not alternative energy sources are better than the kinds that we use right now. So we have electricity, we have natural gas, we have various kinds of. Then when people talk about solar, you think about it, you need electricity to do solar, which means electricity comes from coal. So give us a little bit of a background of, what kind of energy sources are really clean?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, and I'm sure Kate can certainly chime in. This is the area that I focus on most extensively at SCLC. My area of practice is in energy and air work. And so I'll say a couple of things about that. First, you started this discussion by talking about children and homes and what we can do to better our home environments for our children. Well, I think that there is no more pressing issue for our children than the issue of climate change. And there's no area that's more relevant than when you're talking about energy and how our energy is produced. So coal-fired generation is the #1 source of climate change in the Southeast. And we consume a tremendous amount of coal even here in Virginia through our utilities, through the generation sources that they provide. So there are opportunities for individuals to think about their purchasing power. So their utility that they purchase from, whether it's Dominion of Virginia Power or any other utility company, where they're generating their electricity, and if it's from more sustainable sources or if it's from sources that we know pollute the air that we breathe and the water that we drink and release a lot of toxic chemicals that impact our children, that impact vulnerable populations, that contribute to climate change. So on the flip side, there are clean and renewable options. The first, and this is certainly something that Laura can speak to, is energy efficiency, which is just conservation. It's certainly cheaper and easier to not consume a watt of energy than it is to produce that watt of energy. And I've heard some folks talk about the Southeast as the Saudi Arabia of energy efficiency. There is a tremendous potential for us to be more efficient. And it's a good thing for consumers because it makes your home environments more comfortable, your electricity bills are cheaper. So there are a lot of ancillary benefits to energy efficiency. And when you're talking about solar resources, so we now see an influx of distributed solar, which is basically rooftop panels on homes and businesses. And this influx over the last few years that we've seen, this rise in solar installations, is partly driven by the rapidly decreasing cost of installing solar on a home. And certainly it's an awareness of individuals who want to start to offset some of their carbon footprint. So I think there are some issues associated with solar in terms of when the sun's not shining, it's not going to necessarily power your homes. But I think it does a lot in terms of offsetting the need for additional generation from coal-fired power plants. And there are rapidly emerging technologies like battery backup, which we're seeing in other states. And Virginia is slow to adopt some of those things. But I think that there are opportunities for us to begin to embrace more renewable energy resources rather than rely predominantly on fossil fuels.
Kate, will you explain to people how coal is used for electricity? Because I don't think people know that equation.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think power is knowledge. And so, for folks tuning in today, I really encourage them to check out the website ilovemountains.org, which we helped to create, which explains how we extract coal in order to turn the lights on in our homes. Unfortunately, there are a lot of really destructive ways that we extract our coal. We've been mining coal for over 100 years through traditional means, but since the mid-70s, more destructive practices have been employed using large-scale surface mining, what we refer to as mountaintop removal coal mining, where they actually completely deforest the land, and then they use explosives to blow up the entire top of that mountain, dumping all of that debris into adjacent streams, burying, polluting streams, all to then just use heavy machinery to access those seams of coal. This has a number of problems in addition to the obvious environmental destruction that it's causing. It removes the coal miner from the equation. You need far fewer jobs when you use this practice because they're using explosives and machinery to replace what human power used to do. And this is all for a very small amount of our electricity consumption. Over the last several years, we've been declining as a nation our reliance on coal for our electricity, and mountaintop removal accounts for less than 5% of our total electricity usage in this country. And so it's something that we could easily replace with energy efficiency, with better transportation options, before we even talk about replacing it with other types of energy sources.
Well, having in the place where I was raised, coal mining, my grandfather died of black lung, so I'm very familiar with it, and some family members died from coal-related incidences. And then all of a sudden our water ran orange, and now in this decade, where now you could have lit my father's faucet and it would explode with fire because they're now fracking. I mean, we went from coal to fracking in this area. So, I understand completely. We don't think about the local residents or the, what we're doing to the environment when we turn on our, electricity. So tell us some ways to help in our homes. How can we, use electricity wisely? What are some, you don't want us all to go turn off all the lights all over the place, do you? And, we've got our cell phones plugged in, our computers plugged in, our television. How can we eliminate some of that waste?
Well, at Leep, we have about an hour-long home visit where we can actually go to people's homes and really customize our recommendations. Because homes are so different. I always laugh in the fall when we read those lists in the newspaper of the 10 ways to prepare your home for winter and the 10 things you can do. Each home is so different and each family is so different that I would just encourage everyone to consider having a home visit, because then you'll know exactly what it is for you. And there's behavioral changes that are very easy to make. Something as simple as, when it gets dark in the winter, walk around and close all your blinds. That's people don't think to do that. So those kinds of things are easy behavioral changes that make a difference for people. Really watch what you're setting your thermostat to. If you're routinely away during the day, have a programmable thermostat that drops back and comes up. And then we can also help people identify bigger changes that maybe that a professional would make to their home. Helping people identify like what the one most important thing is that they can do, or for a more in-depth inspection of a home, we can give them a prioritized list so they can make a plan for the future. They know what's most important, and then next, so that they kind of have an energy management plan for their home.
So it can be everything from your water heater to the age of your refrigerator and freezer and washing machine and dryer and things of that nature, so we all don't have to go outside and hang our clothes out. However, I do, but anyway, it was a little difficult when they were cotton diapers, but we won't go there. When we talk about, so electricity is only one aspect of, this really complicated issue of keeping our environments healthy. And I wondered if any of you had any, so let's talk about lighting, for example. We've heard about LED lighting and fluorescent lighting, and tell us a little bit about lights. And
Well, lighting
Terri?
accounts for almost 40% of an electricity bill in terms of a business. So that's oftentimes when we're talking about how a business can save on their bottom line, is to look at lighting. Definitely HVAC and heating and cooling is next. But also outdoor lighting. Like, how many times do you see that lighting is used as a security, when really it could be on a motion sensor, on a solar sensors now they have where it can sense the light. So there's just some common sense things, and lighting is a good one in terms of businesses. Definitely LEDs is the way to go. A lot of 75% less energy use. 75%. So I think I was reading something with the holiday lights that to run the old lights was $10, and it's like 82 cents to run it for 30 days over the holidays. So these kinds of things are good to look at. They're definitely a quicker return on investment when we're talking about lighting.
Are the prices the same now from fluorescent, LED, and all of that? Are they
not quite?
Are
Yeah,
LEDs
the
still more
LEDs,
expensive?
They're still more, but they have come down a lot recently, and there's starting to be more sales and rebates so that they're easier to find at a lower price.
And they don't have the trace amount of mercury, so that they're easier to dispose of.
Which have mercury?
So the compact fluorescent bulbs have a trace amount. Now some people kind of use that and they don't put it in because of that. I still think it's worth the energy savings. You can help me if I'm wrong on this, but in terms of how much mercury is used to, for instance, the old incandescents or the manufacturing of that incandescent, it's more in the manufacturing, even though it's not in the bulb. So that's where, we were talking about conscious consuming.
What I encourage people to do if they have concerns about mercury is to only put the compact fluorescent bulbs in the fixtures that are ceiling mounted, not in a table lamp that might fall over and break. But we're typically very careful with our bulbs. We can get them home from the store, we can put them in fixtures that aren't knocked over, and then it's just a question of recycling them at the end of their lives. So they can be used very safely.
And some people say, well, I don't like to throw away my old, I'm switching them out as I go. And what I tell people is that's like flushing the toilet when you haven't gone to the bathroom, like you're wasting money. So I do think it's worth the switch out, especially in those parts of your home or your business that the light's always on, or people are forgetting to turn it off in the bathroom.
Well, I think one of the things that you've brought up is the fact that we really don't think about the process of both creating the electricity, the light bulbs, and all of that. We don't think about how that, we're constantly thinking of the present moment, the current use, and not, the processes that go through. I mean, even if we're talking about, I can talk to children and ask them where meat came from, and they have absolutely no idea. So, or plants or things like that. So I think something has happened in this country where we've lost that continuity between understanding the processes of the way things happen. So, you know, and I know you're not physicians, but how does we're on the electrical topic for right now. So how does electricity affect our bodies, our eyes, you know, our being in any way, shape, or form that's different than, for example, when we read by candlelight, or, you know, we didn't have lights, you know, when it got dark. Is the body affected in any way? Does anybody have any idea about that?
I don't have any direct medical knowledge or seen any journal papers on it. I know that there's anecdotal information that I hear about electromagnetic frequencies and how we're having more of these, like, you know, wireless. So maybe the research hasn't yet surfaced, but something worth considering.
Yeah, I haven't seen much research on issues associated with electromagnetic frequencies or just turning on the lights in your home, if that's has a negative health impact in and of itself. But I think what we've spoken to is the process that supports the ability for you to turn on the lights. So you talked about the fact that we've kind of moved away from an accounting of where these things come from and the destructive habits that go into processes, food processes, electricity processes, those types of things. And a lot of that is just an inaccurate accounting of these detrimental impacts or external impacts. So when we pay our electricity bills, that doesn't necessarily account for the coal that we're burning that produces mercury that's in the fish that women eat, that then pollutes their bodies and has other serious deleterious effects on them. The same thing with asthma rates and those types of things. So I think that there are a lot of public health concerns that are associated with electricity production that are not currently accounted for in our electricity bills or when we turn on the lights, and we're not necessarily thinking about that. And that's one of the pieces that I work on, is really evaluating and accounting for all of those issues that are associated with the ways that we produce our electricity right now, and accounting for the benefits of renewable energy and energy efficiency options that don't produce those same harmful impacts.
Which is, you know, really amazing. But I think we're so used to being programmed by what we see on television, the marketing campaigns, selling products, all those kinds of things, and, you know, our fast-paced society and everything else, that, you know, it's really a challenge for anyone to try and figure out all these variables that contribute to, and if you have children, I mean, looking at the chemicals you buy, the cleaning products that you purchase, you know, the wireless in your home, is the water clean? You know, what does clean mean? These are all important factors, and it's a challenge when you're day-to-day, you know, being with your family alone and not just, you know, trying to figure out all these things. Is there a simple, you know, are there simple solutions to some of this? I mean, is there a way of being able to look at this that's a little bit simpler, or do we have to keep, you know, really investigating everything and rely on all of you?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, as you said, it is complicated and the labels don't make it easy. And so as much as people can make personal choices and lifestyle changes that eliminate chemicals from their homes, and just like Terri said, when you're going to make a new purchase, spending a little bit of time researching it. You don't have to learn everything all at once. But, you know, when you're going to make a change, make an educated change. You know, some of the things that people experience in the winter around seasonal affectiveness disorder. Well, LED lights with, you know, specific LED lights can really improve that, just like the old sunlights that people used to sit in front of. So you can have an environmental change in your home that's going to impact your immediate happiness and also, you know, lessen your carbon footprint at the same time, which is great. And so I think just trying to find those things, those pieces of knowledge as you go, rather than trying to learn all of it at once.
Like seasonal depression is what you're talking about.
And I think that's really the reason why we created the nonprofit Better World Betty, is who is on it, who can you go to? I feel like a community needs a source, you know, to go to at the local level, like, well, who is concerned about our clean water? Who is concerned about our clean air? Where can I recycle stuff? So that's really the impetus was, it's hard. We want it to be easier and fun, because there's plenty of research that says it's important to have fun when you're doing this stuff, to get really bogged down in the enormity of it or the complexity of it. You get stuck. And so you can't take that step. The other thing I want to say to kind of just dovetail off this is that getting out in nature, there's so much, there's new research, I guess, at UVA with Tim Beatley called Biophilic Cities. And he's looking at cities and the health implications and the wellness and just the well-being that we have when we recharge in nature. So part of me wants to say, well, let's get back to basics, even though I'm just as running around like everyone else, but really taking that time to slow down, have a car-free day, and just really get back to basics. And you're absolutely right, in terms of consumers, all you have to do is go down the cleaning aisle of your local grocery store, and just all of the stuff, you're supposed to have something for your bathroom, you're supposed to have something for your kitchen, and then you need this for, it's like, really? We do? No, we don't really.
I have ammonia. That's it. Baking soda, all those old kinds of, cleaners, because I recognized a long time ago my children were becoming ill from the aromas, from the toxicity, from things like that. So, so I completely understand. I was going in some direction. Oh, when you were talking about being outside, it's amazing to me what people's concept of being outside is. I used to live at a lake, and lots of people had boats, motorboats, that left gas film all over the lake. They'd clean their boats on land with these toxic chemicals all over, wash them off, and they would run off into the lake. Then there was all the sprays on the lawns that would run off into the lake. And, all of a sudden the lake became polluted and everybody couldn't figure out why. And so, rethinking how we think nature as well, going out there with all this equipment and gas and all kinds of other things isn't necessarily nature, so to speak. You are watching What Wise Women Want. I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski on Charlottesville's Public Access, Comcast Channel 13. And today we're talking about the environments of our home and our business, about greening them and helping them help us be healthy human beings. To my right on our panel is Kate Rooth, from the campaign director of Appalachian Voices, Angela Navarro, the staff attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center, Laura Fiori, a residential energy manager for the Local Energy Alliance program, and Terri Kent, from founder and program manager of Better World Betty. All right, let's talk about land a little bit, since you were talking about, mountaintop excavations and, the land in terms of how we use our land. And it's being depleted by the way we farm and things of that nature. Who'd like to start with talking about the land and how we can conserve land and, help the land, so to speak?
Well, I can kick off just talking about mining in the central and southern Appalachian region, which Virginia is very much a part of. We have polluted over 2,000 miles of streams. We've destroyed over 1 million acres. It's roughly the size of the state of Delaware, has been leveled through the practice of mountaintop removal, coal mining. So one of the easiest things we can do to protect one of the most biodiverse regions in this world, Appalachia is actually the second most biodiverse region. The Amazon is the first. So an incredibly biodiverse region that needs to be protected. It's beautiful for all the things we were talking about, getting out and hiking and whatnot. And we're just destroying it. So definitely, we can start by just eliminating that practice.
And there will be many complaints in the coal industry.
And also really valuing our land. I mean, when we talk about Charlottesville being a world-class city and wanting people to, we want to really preserve our way of life here. There is a real key component, and that is what we're doing, like the choices that we're making, the leadership, and the way we look at the land, not to be destroyed, but to be protected.
Yeah, and that's a good point that, Charlottesville we as citizens of this town are so fortunate that we have these wonderful resources right at our backyard. We have the GW National Forest, the Shenandoah Valley, and a tremendous number of national parks and national forests within, an hour's drive or so. And, Kate spoke a little bit about mountaintop removal mining. In the GW National Forest, there's also talk of opening the GW for hydraulic fracturing or fracking. And we're actually awaiting a final decision from the Forest Service as to whether they will open the GW National Forest to fracking, to high volume commercial oil and gas drilling and exploitation. And we know that that's a resource that is so important to us for a lot of the reasons that you, Terri, spoke about. But having those mountains so close and the enjoyment that we get from that natural resource, and once you lose it to these industrial practices, they're gone forever. So for interested individuals who care about these resources, then becoming informed about the process and weighing in and saying that you don't want these practices occurring in our national forests, which are supposed to be treasured resources for us to be able to enjoy and preserve for future generations. I think there are so many important things that we can do to make our voices known and to kind of collectively use that bargaining or purchasing power, I guess you could say, and use it in a way that that really does dictate how we want to think about the choices that we're making around the land.
Well, I know for myself, I am overwhelmed with, projects that I could be doing. I drove down 20 and they clear cut Route 20. Does anybody know that? Near where I live, just completely clear cut it. Then we had they wanted to put in a shooting range. There's several different things going on just in my area alone. And I'm thinking I'm exhausted by just trying to fight all of these corporations that are coming in and doing all these things. And I had the opportunity to take a plane flight over the National Forest and was appalled to find clear cutting in various bald spots, all over the National Forest. And I'm thinking, how is this, what's happening here? We can't see it from the road or where we are, but from the air, you get a very different vantage point. And so, where is this taking us, for future generations? We're thinking of now, but we're not thinking of future generations. And that's what, can anybody speak to the land in terms of farming, or using the kinds of things that we use on our lawns to stop the dandelions and spray our trees and all those kinds of things? Can anybody speak to that aspect?
Well, we definitely, one of our home menu items, which is a recent campaign that we've just launched on what people can do in their own homes. And again, we have all of these choices. We're overwhelmed, like where can we start? So this is a tangible way, and you can check it out on betterworldbetty.org. But it's a home menu, and it has action items that everybody can take in their home. And one of them is plant, what you plant and what you use on your lawns. And this is a big problem if people have this idea that like more is better. So it's like, let's pour the pesticides on, when really that has long-term ramifications and ramifications for our water system. So, there are things that we
Talk a little bit about that.
Well,
how does pesticide get into the water?
Into your groundwater, and the water connects us all. This is what, I love talking about water quality, and it's really appalling to know that did Rivanna Conservation Society tell me that 70% of our waterways here in our own city do not meet clean water standards. This is crazy. And the way it happens is pesticide use, improper disposal of medical waste, even dog waste. So it's about cleaning up in our own backyard, and it starts with just right where we are, and cleaning it by putting in drought resistant or native plants and that kind of thing, building your own green space so that animals and you can create a salsa garden and you can start feeding yourself. So
well, I personally have an edible landscape.
Nice.
It's created so that everything is edible, and the fact that people spray for dandelions and various other kinds of what really are herbs growing in your yard. I challenge people to take classes and find out what it is that's exactly growing in your yard, because there are so many medicinal uses for a lot of things that are growing, instead of killing them and seeing them as weeds. And instead of planting trees that are leach the land, which are evergreens and those kinds of things, I encourage people to plant fruit trees, or trees that are more beneficial to the land and are beautiful as well as functional. And we have gotten so far away from having landscapes that are edible. That everything we have in our gardens and even there are many flowers that are edible. I mean, I see at the farmer's market, one of our vendors sells edible flowers. And so we can, just with a little bit of thought, rethink what we're doing in terms of in our own backyards.
And I think it's more than just our own backyards, it's our neighbors too. Talking to our neighbors. I remember in my neighborhood, which I think is pretty progressive, we were walking the dog and the kids, and someone was spraying right in front of us, right in front of the sidewalk. And it comes down to having that awkward conversation of like, what are you spraying? And not pointing fingers, but just like, did you know? And have you tried? So it's those conversations that I think that we really need to step up as women, as moms, writing letters, and just having those conversations with our neighbors. Potluck parties, one of the ways I want to use this menu is to have potluck parties and just say, hey, what have you done this month? What can you do next month? How can we support each other?
Mr. Pollock. Tell us a little bit about Mr. Pollock. Is that what a Pollock party is?
A potluck.
Oh, potluck.
Did I invite someone? I didn't know who he was.
No, in my mind I was talking about Pollock. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about the different terms we've been using, because we tend to those of us who know a lot of these things tend to throw around terms that people don't understand. So why don't we talk about the difference between sustainable, green, natural, and organic? What are, for people who don't really know what those things are, would anybody like to describe them a little bit? Will our attorney like to define this?
Absolutely not.
No. We can all maybe try our hand at it. Like, I think that the most robust out of those is the word sustainable. Like, are our actions and activities and what we're doing long-term viable? Is that going to be withstanding the test of time? Or is that something that we're going to deplete the resources, that we're not going to, maximize what we're doing? Green is a little, you got to be wary of green, right? And natural, even natural. And then someone was telling me that organic, and this was news to me, that the organic label, it has to be a 70%, but not all, and all the research about that farm necessarily doesn't have to be in before they get the label. And then there's the labeling. We could talk a whole show about it.
I was going to say the politics and labeling I've investigated myself, and I'm just appalled at how we get to the labels that we get to, and who creates those definitions are the very people who we are trying to, I don't want to say fight against, but we're debating.
Right.
In terms
so
of.
I think it would be important for viewers to know, we talked earlier about furniture. The FSC is the Forest Stewardship Council, and they are definitely much more robust than, there's another label out there, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. So recently I found out about the controversy kind of behind the scenes of that, where one is more industry-led and the other is more independent nonprofit that don't rely on just kind of the under.
I didn't want to say that directly, but that is exactly what I was alluding to. The fact that, many of the statistics that come out, many of the things that are talked about, when they give us data and things like that and tell us what's good and what's not good, how many people have the opportunity to go to the underlying, who is creating this research, who is talking about this, who's funding it, who's the panel behind it, what do they represent? And that's the problem, that's what makes everything so complicated, because, these corporations have obviously ulterior motives for the kinds of things they're telling us. And so, I can remember when DDT and all these other things were promoted as these wonderful products, and all of a sudden, down the line, and spraying our gardens, and these are, and even the things that we use to clean our homes, all of a sudden now all of these studies are coming out talking about the fact, hand sanitizers really don't clean your hands as well as washing them with soap and water. And so it's unfortunate that we're putting products on the market, we're promoting them and marketing them. Everybody goes out and does it because they think they're doing the right thing. And then 10, 15 years down the road, we're finding out, it's not good for us, or it's not healthy. And I don't know what the answer is, to help people. Do you have any solutions, in terms of helping people to think before they act? Any?
Well, one of the easiest, especially here in Charlottesville, we're so fortunate to have so much local business around food and other products that just starting local, invest in your local farmers. You can have a relationship with that farmer and go to the market every Saturday, and they can tell you about how they grow that produce that they're bringing to market. And you can have a lot more trust in knowing that person than a label or something you buy in the store. So I think first and foremost, keep things local.
I wanted to say, speaking of labeling, that Leep has a certificate that we can issue to homeowners when they make changes predicted to save 20% or more in their energy efficiency. It's a Department of Energy certificate called Home Performance with Energy Star. So it's part of the Energy Star program, national program. And the home performance part is, how is your home performing? Is it energy efficient? Is it comfortable? Do you have good indoor air quality? All of those things turn out to be interrelated. And when homeowners make changes using the Department of Energy guidelines, we can issue a certificate that lists all the things that they've done. So, there's green building for a while was one of those big buzzwords, but there are some really good standards out there that can help homeowners know, what to do and how to do it. And get that detailed information.
Some of the simpler things that I was thinking about are things like, how many times have people cleaned out their air conditioning ducts, the heating and the air conditioning ducts? And I spoke to a lot of friends. I talk to friends all the time about these kinds of things, and the first thing I say is, when was the last time you cleaned your heating and air ducts? And they say, never. And I've lived in the house 20 years. And don't use filters. Dust accumulates so much in the house, and people don't realize, or, the moisture that's in the walls, whether it's because of the kinds of materials that were used to build your homes and things like that. There's so many different areas to look at in terms of how upkeep on your house, worrying about those kinds of things. So are all these, for example, the air purifiers and things of that nature, are they good kinds of things to have in a home? Or, are they a benefit? Or, do they outweigh the electricity that you use to use them? Or, does anybody know?
What do you think?
Well, I don't have any research on it, but I do know that some homeowners have told me that they make a big difference for them.
Okay.
And I think it's a matter of what you're sensitive to. So that's, I think that it's worth investigating, but not a cure-all.
And do you want to, I always, in terms of energy efficiency, maybe you can help me out. Do you want humid? Do you want it cool? I think you and I talked about how during the shoulder season, I like to have the fresh air come in. Can you Can you help us out on that?
In terms of humidity, mold and dust mites can't grow below 50% humidity. So, like in your basements, you want to, most people need a dehumidifier in Virginia in their basement that's fully or partially underground. And 50% is the number that you want to shoot for, keeping the humidity below. And it can be tricky because sometimes in the winter we want to add humidity, but in the summer we want to take it out. We're in a mixed humid climate. But the 50% number is important to remember.
It is very humid here, and people have a lot of trouble. I mean, I know a lot of people, we get a lot of influx of foreigners here. I know I don't mean foreign countries, and they have a very difficult time with the humidity here, and they're constantly running one thing or another to try and balance that humidity out.
Let me say one more thing then, because that's an interesting point. Air conditioners spend 75% of their energy cooling and 25% dehumidifying, whereas a dehumidifier spends 100% of its energy dehumidifying. So if you have a little problem, like the air conditioner may be able to manage it, but if you are really having a serious humidity problem, don't rely on your air conditioner. Definitely go for a dehumidifier.
Okay, so are you talking about air conditioning units? Are you talking about whole house
Whichever
air?
is appropriate for your home, whichever you
No,
have.
but I'm saying, does the same
with the
effective...
statistic?
Is
I guess it
both
would be-
are effective?
I think it's more towards central air conditioning than a window air conditioner.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay, so we're kind of smattering through the air and the water and it's wonderful because people tend to section all these points out, but in fact they're all integrated and they're all interrelated to each other. So, what kinds of lawsuits do you see? In terms, no, I'm serious. What kinds of things do you see in terms of these environmental issues?
Well, at SCLC, we represent client organizations, which are other nonprofit, usually 501c3 organizations. And we have a couple of primary practice areas. So, like I said, clean air and energy is the practice area that I work in. We also focus on transportation and land use issues. We do clean water issues, coast and wetlands issues, forest issues like the GW National Forest issue. So here in Charlottesville, the biggest issues, I guess, out of our Virginia office are around transitioning away from coal-fired generation into renewable resources and energy efficiency. And so my cases are kind of more boring utility commission wonky cases. They're not when you turn on Law and Order and you see someone standing in front of a judge talking about a murder trial, although they're certainly pretty high stakes. We're also focused on local issues, so the Western Bypass. That's a big issue that SCLC has taken the lead on for a number of years. The GW National Forest very heavily weighing in on the decision on whether to open it up for fracking and uranium mining in Southwest Virginia. That's another big focus of ours. And we have a new governor that's going to be sworn in January, so thinking about what that new administration could mean in terms of changes in policy and the statutes that we litigate our cases under. But there are a plethora of environmental concerns in Virginia. There's water issues associated with impairment of streams and rivers and the Chesapeake Bay, which is a big resource for us here in Virginia. So you can talk forever about the things that we're focused on.
Let's be honest. You two ladies are much more in this realm. Do we really have a voice in these issues? We fight them. We fight City Hall, and these corporations have multi-millions to fight back, and end up I think of Lake Anna and how much we tried to fight that one, and how much we tried to fight the bypass, and these things still come to pass no matter how hard And I think people give up because they feel like they attempt to try and educate people and do better and do more, but the corporations end up having their way.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I do understand how.
Do we ever win?
We do. I understand how it can be disheartening, but I think one of the things that really drew me to law and I've known that I wanted to work in environmental advocacy pretty much my whole life. But I saw that using these legal tools gives us an opportunity to really evaluate things on a level playing field, or in in a forum where you have a non-partial individual who is looking at the corporate interests, the governmental interests, and other stakeholders like the environmental community and individuals who just care about these issues, and weighs in on them. And I will say that at SELC, we do win a lot of cases, and we have preserved a lot of land and had a lot of very significant victories. So it's not unheard of. But you're right, we're certainly fighting some very powerful, well-funded entities and corporations and interests. So the more voices that we can add to this conversation, the better off we all are. Especially because these are issues that impact all of us. Exactly. At the end of the day, we're all so intricately tied to the land in which we live, and the impacts that we make in the land.
Well, I know go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we've celebrated some huge victories right here in Virginia that were because people, just everyday citizens, got involved, and without those citizens being involved, we probably wouldn't have had those. A coal-fired power plant that was being proposed for Surrey County in the Hampton Roads area of the state was defeated. That wouldn't have happened without citizens being engaged and writing letters to the editor and turning out to every single meeting saying, we don't want a coal-fired power plant in our backyard. This is going to have downstream impacts. The coal-fired power plant that was built in Wise County in the southwestern part of the state has some of the strictest mercury standards of any power plant in this country. And that's, again, as a direct result of the litigation and the citizen involvement in those cases. We also have defeated recently very large mountaintop removal permits. The Ice and Rock Ridge permit, which would have been a massive, massive mine, was put on hold as recently as this past year, again, because citizens spoke out. And so sometimes I think we don't celebrate the successes, or people don't hear about them.
Exactly.
And so we need to know that it does make change, and everything people are doing does amount to something.
And that, I think that's what makes it futile. We hear about the failures, and I know I experienced it where my hometown, where everybody kept trying to fight, and we had the ramifications of the coal mines and all of that, and then fracking came in, and people tried to fight that, and it seems that the politicians had more power than the regular citizens. So.
Yeah, it's so important to believe that every action that you make makes a difference, and that's really what I believe, and that I feel like people should embrace. The littlest. Lower your cooktop, put your lid on your boiling water. This makes a difference. You look at Two Angry Moms. That, I don't know if you're familiar with that organization, but Two Angry Moms were just like, let's get better foods into the schools. So,
well, let's go around for the last 5 minutes and give us, each of you, a summation or anything you thought you wanted to talk about that you didn't get heard. Terri, would you like to start?
Sure. I just want to 1 minute. We have 2 major programs going on right now. We're really excited about the Better Business Challenge, and that's a friendly competition among businesses where we go in and help them look at energy efficiency opportunities, ways to reduce their impact. So we have 65 local businesses and churches and schools. So you can check it out. Can I give a website? CvilleBetterBiz.org. So we're really excited about that, and we're using the menu to really engage those employees. And this is what you can do in your own home.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Laura?
Leap has a wonderful program available right now. It's an in-home visit, and we can, while we're there, install energy-efficient light bulbs, take the temperature of your refrigerator and your water heater to see if they can be adjusted to save energy, and really help people zero in on what's most important for their home. It's a very reasonable cost. We have some great rebates for this program available right now, so feel free to get in touch if you'd like to have this home visit and really take a big step toward understanding how your home is using energy and just where you stand.
Is that program, the city is giving out water purifiers or something? Are
we
you part of
have
this?
city water conservation kits and also county water conservation kits that are free and available at this visit. So there's a lot of great things that we can connect people to.
Okay. How about Angela, the Southern Environmental Law?
Sure. So I've said this a couple of times. My focus is on air and energy issues, so I can really only speak to that in my closing remarks. But I will say that I think we're at a really important crossroads here in Virginia, and especially here in Charlottesville when we think about Dominion Virginia Power as our largest energy provider. And there are options for us to really transition away from really harmful impacts of coal-fired generation and to renewable resources that are clean and reliable and that can power our homes in a cost-effective manner. And so I just want citizens to be engaged and aware that Dominion recently filed their long-term energy plans, and we have a hearing in the springtime where we will be evaluating how Dominion plans to continue their business as usual approach, which is heavily reliant on fossil fuels. But I think the more active engagement we can have and individuals lending their voices, that's extremely important.
Kate?
Well, I can piggyback right off of what Angela was saying. Southern Environmental Law Center and Appalachian Voices are all a member of a coalition, and we just launched a campaign, New Power for the Old Dominion, where we're educating citizens across the state about the vast potential for renewable energy and energy efficiency that exist within the state of Virginia to really illustrate how much of a crossroads we're at. We also commissioned a study, the Changing Course Report, which lays out a clean energy investment plan for Virginia, and it's a direct comparison to the long-range energy plan that Angela just mentioned, and it's cost comparative to the Dominion plan, and it's all technologically feasible. And so what we're promoting are cost-effective solutions that we can implement here in the state. And so for folks to just get involved in the campaign, talk about these issues in their community, you can visit our website, appalachianvoices.org, for more information about our efforts.
So you have been watching, this is a panel of women, and we've been talking about greening our homes and our businesses. And our panel today has been Kate Rooth, the campaign director for Appalachian Voices, Angela Navarro, she's the staff attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center, Laura Fiori, who's the residential energy manager at the Local Energy Alliance program, and Terri Kent, who is founder and program manager of Better World Betty. And if you'd like to have more information about any of these projects, any of the women who have been speaking today, you can go to our website and look up each individual woman at www.whatwisewomenwant.com, and wise is spelled with a Z. That's www.whatwisewomenwant.com, and you can go to the television program section where you'll find a list of the ladies, and then click on to each of their names, and it will send you to each of their pages where you can find out either more information or contact them and have contact information there. And we hope you enjoyed our program today, and join us again, please, next week.